All right, so an official welcome to each and every one of you who have decided to join us here at Therapy Ed's presentation related to the declining NBCOT pass rates. So we are certainly hoping to have an engaged discussion. We have been talking, those of us who are presenters have been talking about how best to answer your questions. So we are going to invite you to put your questions in the chat box at the end of each of the sections, and the representative speaker will answer those for everyone. If you want to hold your questions until the end, you are certainly able to do that, and we will stay on as long as people are engaged and wanting to have questions answered to the best of our abilities. So we do have people joining. To those of you who have joined just in the past moment or two, my name is Ingrid Provident. I will be the moderator and your last speaker today. Our first speaker is Dr. Carrie Inda. Carrie is going to be talking to us particularly about some research that she has done related to the declining pass rates in various professions. So, Carrie, I'm going to let you go ahead and take it over from here.
Wonderful. Thank you. And welcome to everyone who's joining today. Just a brief background. My name is Carrie Inda, and I'm professor and chair of the Occupational Therapy Program at Mount Mary University, which is in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And for my section, I'm going to be giving you information about pass rates in the related professions. So you can move ahead, Ingrid. So what the reason that I was inspired to do this dig into information is I was attending Academic Leadership Council last spring, and NBCOT was providing information just about the 2025 pass rate information for OT and OTA. And that generated a lot of conversation. And people were asking questions about why was the decline of the pass rate for 2025, especially for the OTR at 68%. And one of the responses were that this was not isolated to OT, and this was a phenomena in the related professions. And that caused me to want to go down a rabbit hole and look at the related professions and see um, how they were impacted as well. So I started looking around, and here I wanted to share with you what I found. So what you will see on your screen are exactly the information as it is represented from the association or those boards. So I didn't change that information. So first on the screen is from physical therapy and physical therapist assistant. Pass rates in the last 5 years. You can see that they have first-time candidates as well as candidates, graduates from non-US programs. And their pass rates have spanned in PT from as low as 84% and as high as 91% in the last 5 years. And PTA has been as low as 76% and as high as 85%. You can move to the next slide. Then I looked at audiology, and this was a lot of numbers on the screen, so I put kind of a circle around the pass percentage. And they go back about 10 years in their percentage rates. And you can see that they've had a dip in their percentage rates in the most recent years. So audiology in their table one at the top has been as high as about 90%, but they went down, interestingly enough, similarly to 68%. So kind of matches in a similar pattern to us of a lowered pass rate. In table two, this is representing those whose educational level was reported, and that pass rate was decreased in more recent years. It was higher 10 years ago at about 91%, but in more recent years between 67 and 73%. And next slide. And then we're going to see speech language pathology. and not as much variation there, but we can see that in the top chart that that is between 81 and 90%. It had been more stable in past years, but it has dipped a little lower in more recent years. And similar in the chart down below, we can see that it has been as low as about 77% and as high as 92% when in 2017, 2018. And next slide. And our next profession is RN and the NCLEX. Now, RN has a unique way of reporting is that they report it quarterly. And they divide it out by degree level for associate, baccalaureate, and diploma. So there's a lot of numbers here. They look at US educated versus internationally educated. And that's quite a bit to kind of parcel out here and what you're seeing on the screen. So there was a lot to sort of circle and highlight here. If you want to pay attention to first-time US educated, that would be at the very top line, and you can look across by each quarter. 2024 is at the top, and this year, 2025. So it's been about, I'd say, relatively stable. There hasn't been much in the way of variation here, but if we wanted to look back a little more, I found that the lowest year for pass rate was 2022. It was 79.9%. So they did have variation if you did want to dig back. And I did put a link at the bottom of every single one of these slides. So if anyone wanted to do the deep dive into the data, they were able to do so themselves. But so these past couple of years, there's not lots of variation, but a little bit there. And next slide. And then athletic training. They have a couple different versions of the PA exam. They had a version 7 and then they went to version 8. And I circled on the chart on the right so you could see across almost 10 years what their pass rates have been. And you can see their percentage pass rate is lower and has hovered in the 60s to 70% characteristically through time. So it was not unusual for them to have a lower pass rate as low as 61% in 2020, 2021. So one might assume that maybe COVID could have something to do with it, though I'm only looking at numbers. I don't know that for sure. And it's been as high as almost 78% in 2018 to 2020. So that's been their range. And next slide. And then physicians. If I was curious about physicians, so I included them. They do have 3 steps of administration, and this includes MDs and DOs. They don't have a lot of variation, actually. They are from mid to high 80s into low 90s, depending upon which step of administration you're looking at. And it has stayed pretty stable through time, actually. And I was curious to look back because this is just the last couple years on the actual charts that I captured. And then in the bottom right corner, I decided to take a couple years back of data and then put that in there if you wanted to do a look back for an additional couple more years. And you can see that the percentage pass rates stayed relatively stable even then. So not much variation there. Okay, next slide. And I think that will be our last profession. Yes, this would be physician assistant. This is the last 5 years that they have provided on their pass rates.
Sorry, Carrie.
That's okay. And forward and forward. There we go. And for this, we can see that it's pretty stable. First-time test takers is actually more towards the right-hand side, and you can see it's only between 92 and 95% that it's varied. And then with the total exams that have been administered for everyone, including repeat test takers, it's between 89 and 93%. So pretty stable, I would say, within that profession. So that was my dive into all of the information. I'm hope that that's been kind of helpful or insightful. It was interesting to me just to look at the different professions and see what some of those trends in the data is, and just to kind of know the what is. But I'm happy to answer any questions that you might put into the chat, and also to have a discussion at the end of our presentation.
So thank you, Carrie. I'm going to put up a poll and just ask those of you who are here, hopefully you see that poll up on your screen, what it is that you feel are the reasons for the OT declining NBCOT pass rates. And then, as I stated in the beginning, but I'll go ahead and reshare how we're going to handle the questions as soon as we're done with that poll. So you should see up in front of you a poll with three of what we thought maybe would be some of those big picture reasons that we're feeling students are having less success on the NBCOT exam. I'll give you just about another 15 seconds to answer that. And then what you'll see up on the screen, I'm going to go ahead and end our poll, share with you the responses from our audience. And so what you should see here are your responses. 36% feel as if students are not studying specific for the NBCOT exam or are unprepared. So 36%. And you could have answered multiple of these. So this isn't, you didn't have the opportunity or didn't need to just answer one. 50%, and we're seeing this, and we talk about this a lot as therapy ed faculty, student anxiety, right? There's a lot of anxiety out there, and sometimes that anxiety can get in the student's way. The structure or changes of the NBCOT test, 43% of you feel that this may be one of the reasons for the declining pass rate. And then I'd be curious, and you can put this in the chat. Those of you, 25% felt that there were other reasons. So you can certainly put that in the chat. So the way we're going to use the chat here is we are going to ask that when you put something in the chat box, you just leave that for everyone to see. Specific questions for Carrie. Carrie will be answering those as we move forward to our next section. So at any point in time, you can put a question in the chat. I will be looking at those. Carrie will be looking at those, and then we will kind of get through our 4 sections of today's presentation. So you can feel free at any point in time to put those questions in the chat, and I am now going to introduce Amy Bryant. Amy Bryant is one of our faculty from the Therapy Ed. She is going to be talking to you about how we actually use our practice tests and online learning assistant, as well as our tutoring options. So I'm going to stop sharing. Amy, you're going to go ahead and be able to take over there.
There we go. Can everybody see my screen now? We're good? Okay. All right. So thank you. Thank you for having me. Like Ingrid said, I have been with Therapy Ed for about 10 years now. Hard to believe. And primarily what I do now is a lot of tutoring for Therapy Ed along with 3 other of our faculty members. And then I teach both the OT and the OTA class. And I think one of the best tools that we have are our practice exams. And then what comes along with that is our AI learning assistant. So when students purchase the review and study guide, whether it be the OT or the OTA one, they get not only the book, but then they also get 3 full-length practice exams through our learning portal. And so I just wanted to show you what those look like, and then most importantly, show you the review that they get and the feedback and all the information and assessment on their performance. So the first thing I'll show you is what the exams actually look like. They are tailored, after the NBCOT exam. So I'll just show you this. So it looks very similar. They're going to have their question, and then they'll have their, choices, whether it's 3 or 4. Each test also has 4 clinical scenario sets where the scenario is over on the left, and then the corresponding question and the choices is on the right, where they have to pick 3 out of the 6. It is timed, but it does not turn off at the 4 hours. So we really encourage students to do it as a simulated exam. I always tell students, whether I'm in the classroom or tutoring, not to do like 50 questions a day. To me, that defeats the purpose. We have to build that cognitive endurance. So it is timed, but if they run over, like you can see, mine says -8 hours because I've been using it as a sample for a while. It didn't take me 8 hours, but they at least get an idea of how long it is taking them, okay? All right, so then when they, and you can highlight, let me just show you this, we can do all the things. Wait, let me come up here. We can highlight, right? And we can also strike out answers that they think are wrong, just like NBCOT, okay? All right, so then when they get done, this is where the fun starts, they get this report. So they're going to get their percentage score, which we all know is not valid or really, reliable or a predictor, and trying to explain that to students sometimes is very difficult. But they do get a percentage score. Then one thing I always point out to them too is they get, how long did it take them and how long did it take them for each question? So are they really spending too much time, or are they really going, too fast? They will also get, and for some reason mine doesn't pop up when I do it. I don't know why, but they get this overall analysis of their performance. It's going to give them, it's long, like 2-3 pages, gives them what areas did they do well in, what areas were they a little bit weaker in. It gives them suggestions for things to study. It gives them key takeaways. So it really analyzes their overall performance on this test. It then breaks it down even further. So we have just here on this screen here, they can see, exactly which questions they got wrong, which ones they got right. Then we break it down into categories. So these are the content categories. And what's nice is it gives you a percentage of each one. So like for me here, when I did this, my lowest was musculoskeletal system disorders. So they can then go back to the book, and there is a chart in the book that shows you if you were weaker in these areas, which chapters do you need to review? And, I'll kind of throw the tutoring in there too. This is something I always go over with students in tutoring. I have them do one of the exams. We look at the report, we look at their areas that are weak, and we say, like here, I would say, okay, you need to go and read chapter 6, study chapter 6, and you also need to study chapter 11. So this gives them much more guided studying as far as content goes. They also get domain performance, how are they doing there? Then the one that nobody else does is the critical thinking. So every single one of the questions on our exams, all 600 of them, have been marked and categorized as to which type of critical thinking do they have to do when they answer that question. So then it gives them the feedback of how they're doing in each one of those areas. So like for me here, it looks like I had a very hard time with inferential thinking. So again, in the book, in chapter 2, it has all this information, but then there's also a chart that says, if you're having problems with inferential, this is probably what you're doing. Try doing this instead. So it gives you strategies. And I always tell students, if we can improve the way you're thinking, then your scores will go up, right? So we talk about that. And then the really important part is their ability to go back and review all the questions. And I always encourage them to review everything even the ones they got right. But we'll take a look here at what, this looks like. So here, again, you're going to see the question. They're going to, on this left-hand side, the correct answer, what they put, and then also it gives them an idea of how many other students answered it correctly or answered it incorrectly. And I'll never forget when we were in Philadelphia, I was showing this to a student, and he said, oh my God, I don't want to be in the 1%. And I'm like, well, yeah, you don't want to be in the 1%. But if you're in the 1%, that shows you that you really need to go and look up that information because you should know it, right? Then it tells them, I got it wrong because it only took me 1 second, but it tells them how long they took on each question, which I think is important for timing and stuff. And then the most important part is we give the rationale for every single question. Why was the answer right? And I sometimes think this is more important. Why were the other ones wrong? And I always tell students that's where the learning happens. That's where you really start to get those critical reasoning skills and you start to understand what's going on. And you start to think like NBCOT and they all go, no. And I'm like, yeah, but you got to, All right. Then we have our new learning assistant. Actually, we've had her for about a year now, I think. Been out there for a little while. So with every single question, they get 3 pre-populated questions that are related to the topic of that question. So let's just do, well, here's one. The question is also about ALS. So how does ALS affect daily living? The learning assistant is going to pull from the RSG, from the textbook first, and then go out to other resources. But the one thing I've noticed, and I know I'm biased, but I really believe this, is it doesn't give them just fluff. It gives them very concrete examples and good information. So not only can they use these pre-populated questions to dive in a little deeper, but they can ask this AI learning assistant anything they want, right? So I might say, what are some common, let's try this, pieces of adaptive equipment for ALS? Who knows? I haven't done this before. Let's see what it says. Yeah, good. Oh, it gave it to me. See, it gives them really concrete examples, not just fluff, okay? Now, the one thing that I've discovered, and Paula Carey, actually, she and I were playing with this one day, and you can ask this thing anything. So how should I study Rancho levels? So it's not necessarily content, but it'll give them study tips too. And it's going to think, and then it's going to say, do case studies, flashcards, those kinds of things. You can also ask it for more questions. Give me a question about ALS. If I do it like that, it's just going to give me a short answer, right? It doesn't give me a multiple choice. But I've just learned, and I have my students do this now with every question they got wrong. If I say, give me a new NBCOT question with rationale about ALS, it will give me one. And so what I've been telling the students to do is if you get a question wrong, read the rationale, make sure you're understanding now why that was wrong, and then ask the learning assistant for a new question to see if you can get it right, to see if you've kind of corrected that error, okay? So, the learning assistant, the more they use it, the more they get in there and play with it, the better, just like with any AI that it's going to do. But I like the fact that it's here. Now, they can't access learning assistant until they take a test, right? But once they take a test, then they have it, okay? All right. Then the other thing, get rid of that I want to just show you is about the tutoring, right? So Therapy Ed does offer tutoring. Students can come online and schedule it themselves. They just, if you're an OT student, you would go to the OTR tab on our website, come right up to the top, it says tutoring. Everything is done on this page. They pick their instructor. I'll just pick myself. They're going to get my bio. Then they have a calendar that shows the days I'm available, and then the times that I'm available. They'll click what they want, and then they fill in the information to pay. So it's very easy. And then I get an email saying, Ingrid scheduled a tutoring session for Monday at 9 o'clock, and then I get in touch with the student and, send the Zoom link and all that kind of stuff. The other thing that I'm starting to see more and more of, which I think is so exciting, is schools actually offering our tutoring services to their students. So right now I'm seeing a group of students from one university. They've got, 6 or 8 sessions. And then another school, I've got a couple of students who are like getting 6 sessions. So if that's something you're interested in from a program director standpoint, just reach out to Betsy, and she can get that all, set up for you and stuff. But I think it's really, I am very encouraged by seeing that schools are, offering the therapy ed services and stuff. So that's what I got. Hope that helped.
Thanks, Amy.
All
So
right,
if you can,
stop.
perfect.
Yep.
All right, so as we did before, if you have specific questions directly for Amy, if you would put those in the chat box. Again, Amy was talking to us about how to utilize the online practice exams, how to use that AI learning assistant that works to further students' understanding of the questions as they review each and every one of them. So if you can put any of your questions in the chat box, and I'm also going to just launch one more poll as we get ready for the third presenter here. So this poll, we are simply going to ask, just to get a sense, the degree to which each of you recommend therapy ed products. So that poll should be up there now for each of you. Do you recommend therapy ed products to your students? Just really trying to see how many of you, for the purpose of this presentation, are learning some new information about therapy ed products. And maybe even if you already recommend some of the therapy ed products to your students, maybe you'll learn a little bit more about what we have to offer to support your students as well as you as faculty. I was noticing a few things, so I'm going to take a minute while we are answering that poll for some of the questions that are coming in the chat. Somebody asked if Therapy Ed tracks first-time pass rates for students. We have no way of getting that information from NBCOT. So actually, the next poll question is going to ask those of you who are out with students if you track students who take therapy ed as a course versus those who do not, if there's any difference in the pass rate. But we as a company do not have access to NBCOT to report to us because NBCOT has no idea whether students do or do not take our courses. So it would be incumbent upon all of the programs to report to us the pass rate. So hopefully that makes sense, but I can deal with that later. So 89% of you are recommending therapy ed products to your students for NBCOT test prep. For that, we want to say thank you, and we hope that students are finding that to be useful. And about 11% of you are not recommending that, and that's perfectly okay, but we do hope that you learn a bit more about what we have to offer as a company to support you as faculty as well as your students. So again, just a reminder, if you have questions for Amy Bryant related to the learning assistant or learning more about tutoring, please go ahead and put those in the chat. And our next presenter is Dr. Amy Hutkin. So Amy, if you would open your microphone. Amy has been facilitating the liaison, if you will, the use of therapy ed in-person courses at St. Francis University. So Amy, I'm going to let you introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your experience with hosting therapy ed in-person courses at your university.
Thanks, Ingrid. Hi, everyone. It's good to see you. 4:30 on a Wednesday afternoons. It might be a little tough to hang in, but I hope I can provide some information for you. So first of all, I just would like to tell you that St. Francis University is in a very small rural area in Pennsylvania. We are southwest of Penn State University, east of Pittsburgh. So we graduated out our first MOT class, and that is our program. We are entry-level MOT. We graduated our first class in 2001. That is also the year that we started hosting therapy ed courses on our campus. And so initially, the reason that we did that was because we are so rural, and we knew that our students would find it difficult to make their way to find a course. And there was a benefit of us hosting the course and our students getting a bit of a discount for that. So we thought there's no downside to that. And what we found out of that is we developed a almost 25-year relationship now with therapy ed, and we continue to host the courses for our students. And I might be preaching to the choir if many of you already, utilize therapy ed, but we have just found a very good relationship. It's very easy to host the courses. For many, many years, probably for 20 of the 25 years we've been doing this, we have done a Saturday, Sunday course. Now we have built it into a Monday, Tuesday, and we provide that course to our students who are in their last semester before graduation and taking the exam. We found that that is the best time to do that. They do come back from both of their level 2 fieldwork rotations and are on campus for about 3 to 4 weeks with us. And we build the course right into their back on campus syllabus. We do not require it because they do pay for that out of their own pocket. It is not part of a lab fee, but we highly encourage that. So just thinking over the past maybe five or 8 years, we've only had maybe a handful of students who have not taken the course. We have had some take it at other sites just because of the timing in their lives, but we have had very good attendance. And we've had very good instructors over the past couple of years. Kathy Dolhai has been coming. She's been a faithful. She's almost an honorary adjunct faculty at St. Francis at this point. We love her. Her approach with the students is just, top notch. The benefit to the face-to-face is that students are held accountable for engaging, participating, answering, asking questions. So they have to get there in the morning and check in, and the day is very structured. And what we found as a huge benefit is for that course is that the most, maybe the biggest lesson learned is that when students come back from 2 rotations of field work, what they find is they are not prepared to sit for a lengthy amount of time. And that course teaches them that they need to sit and pay attention. So that is like just one added benefit, and it's probably not one of the primary purposes. But I always call it like reverse marathon training, right? Like when you are training for a race, you build up your miles and in your endurance. But when you're training for the NBCOT exam, you are like training mental endurance. You're training yourself how to sit and concentrate for longer periods of time, especially coming off a level 2 field work. So we have found it very easy for us to offer that. And maybe I say easy just because, it's just part of our routine now. We have had students from other programs come and join as well. Not recently, but over the period of time, we've had students come from other programs, and that has offered a nice networking session for those students and our St. Francis students. I know I'm blabbing, but there's, I can tell you that a couple of things. Number one, our first time pass rate out of St. Francis, looking back over about the past 5 years, is about 75%. We had 1 year that blipped a little bit below that, but we've also had years where we've gone a little higher than that, but average of a 75% first time test takers rate, and usually within the year, a 100% pass rate. And the majority of our students take the course. Now, that is extremely helpful for our students. Their verbal feedback to us, if you want to call it some collection of qualitative data, they tell us that the content of the information that they're being tested on, they know and understand a lot of that. But what the course provides for them is a way to take all of the information swirling in their head and learn to organize, compartmentalize, and understand the different types of critical and clinical reasoning they need to answer the question in the way that question is being asked. So they're not necessarily learning new OT information, but they're learning how to take that test. And that is very helpful for them. They are completely exhausted after that course. We do that on a Monday, Tuesday, and then we give them Wednesday off, and then they come in Thursday morning and they take a simulation exam for us that we create. It's not through the therapy ed, but just to more or less get them some practice in testing for the exam, and we don't want to utilize all of the exam questions through therapy ed for that exam. So that has been our strategy, and it has been very successful, I would say, based on what our numbers look like and our student feedback. We will continue hosting. I know that I think I had a text from somebody, maybe Kathy Dulhai, asking when 2026 dates are, and we'll get that to you, but I'm available to help answer any questions. I will tell you that when you host an on-site course, an in-person, face-to-face course, there is you have to provide a little bit of food, but I will tell you, the more snacks and things that you do provide and just eat those costs within your department, the students so look forward to those breaks. And of course, the good OT brain, we put crunchy snacks out, we put mints out, we put sour things out spread throughout the day, cold drinks and things like that to kind of help, with the sensory regulation of learning the information.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Amy. And again, since we have two Amy's on here, if you have any questions related to how, I think she gave a really nice overview of being able to have hosted the course with us for 20 plus years. We do really try to send the same instructor to the university. There's a relationship there with the faculty, with the therapy ed instructors. I believe that there are 10 current OTs, very seasoned educators who are going out and providing these in-person courses. So, you can request an instructor. A lot of it really depends upon their schedule as well. But we do our best as a company to keep some consistency with different universities. All right. So again, any questions for Amy? You can go ahead and put those in the chat.
Hey, Ingrid, can I show people something very quickly? It's coming up several times in the chat.
Sure.
And if you don't mind, I'm going to, yeah. Okay. So people have been asking about, is there a video for how to use the online learning assistant and that kind of stuff? And I put in the chat that, yes, there are videos available on our YouTube channel, but I want to show you how to get there. So here you can see this, right? Yes, everybody's good? Do you see the webpage? Yeah? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So if you go to either we'll go to the COTA one this time. and you click, and then you go up here to online office hours. So in case you didn't know, we do online office hours every Tuesday night, 7 o'clock Eastern time. Here is the schedule of, what's coming up, and this goes all the way through, good gracious, next July. So this is a great thing to show your students too. It's free. How many other people give you something free? Just us, right? They don't need a link. They don't need a meeting ID. They just come right here. They click on that green square. It'll take them straight to the Zoom room, okay? If you go down to the bottom of the page, there's another green box, and this is where you click that, and it's going to take you straight to our YouTube page. There are some of the videos here that stay up all the time, like the mindfulness one and other ones, but here's one right here that Paula Carey and I did about the AI Learning Assistant. I also did a session last night for office hours, a new session on study skills, and I went over that material that I just showed you in that video also, and that will be up in the next few days. So there's 2 videos now on our YouTube channel that show how to use that AI Learning Assistant. And, if you have any questions, I'll put my email in the chat too. Please feel free to email me. I can show you how it works and stuff. Not a problem at all. Okay, I'm good.
Thanks, Amy. All right, and so the final thing that we wanted to share with you is just a little bit about what our courses look like. Amy told you a little bit about the online office hours. I have that in this section here as well. And so we want to help you understand a little bit of what Amy has been talking about as far as hosting those courses. So for those of you that may not know me, my name is Ingrid Provident. I have been a member of Therapy Ed's teaching staff here for probably close to 12 years now. The time really flies. But I do a lot of the maintenance of our YouTube channel, as well as delivering courses both face-to-face and online. So what I wanted to share with you is just a bit of the benefits of utilizing the Therapy Ed courses. I think Amy did some of that, but I love that reverse marathon training. So many times students are clearly not ready to sit, but this is what we do. So the OTR course format is 2 days. And so when we bring students in, we certainly get to know a little bit about them, particularly if they're not all from the same university. So as Amy was saying, if a particular school hosts a course, unless they close that course, other people can register for that. And so you can have this cross-pollination, if you will, of people who are coming together to sit in a course based upon their own academic preparation. If a course is closed, then it's only the students from that particular university. If it's considered an open course, it is up on our website. Students can register for that, and then they receive the information about where the course is going to be hosted, etc. So what do we do? On day 1, we talk about the NBCOT format. So one of the things that I asked in that poll earlier is, do students understand the kinds of questions that NBCOT is asking? So we go over things like, what is the difference with the clinical scenario set questions, those questions that have 6 answers and they have to choose the 3 best answers. So we talk about that. We talk about multiple choice questions. We talk about clinical and critical reasoning. We help students understand that sometimes if you just take the first blush at a question, they're not really digging in and understanding what the question is really asking. And so we give them tips and strategies and hints to look for keywords, to think about where in the occupational therapy process this question is situated. And we divide our questions into 4 unique sections. 20 questions in physical conditions, 20 questions in pediatrics, 20 questions in psychosocial. And as you can see in day 1, it's very question heavy. We do 3 of those 4 sections So the students are leaving there having individually answered questions, probably about 70 questions that day. On day 2, we take a little different focus. Still, there are content questions that students are being asked to answer, but day 2 is really focused on them as a test taker. We talk about things like test taking styles. We help them craft an exam preparation plan utilizing the templates that exist in the therapy ed books. We help them understand how anxiety has an it causes them difficulty a lot of times. So we integrate things like some anxiety reduction ideas, talking a bit about mindfulness, talking about how to approach a particular question that may escalate their feeling of anxiety if they don't understand the diagnosis, they don't recognize what the question's really asking. And I know I personally use a lot of humor with that particular aspect of the conversation. I help students understand that if they don't recognize a particular diagnosis, don't start throwing their faculty under the bus quickly in their mind, or don't start, thinking that they're never going to pass the test, etc. So we talk about that. We laugh about that. We give them strategies as to, if you really don't know a question, how do you move on and just focus on the next question? So we do that with kind of a forced opportunity, I always call it. The questions are up on the screen for the students for a minute. They have to answer those questions, and we do that for 10 questions at a time. And sometimes I noticed in the chat, people say that if English isn't their first language, or we have students who read very slowly, that can actually produce a lot of anxiety in the students. And so we also provide a self-paced simulated exam. We give them an exam of, I think there's 20 questions on there that they can take literally as much time as they need within reason, to see if it takes them a little longer per question, are they then getting a more accurate representation of their answers? And so we kind of take away that element of the forced time. So we give them that option as well within the course. And then we wrap up the course by talking about, how do you register for the exam? What happens at the testing center? What kinds of things have they heard in the past? What can they take? What can they not take? How do they set themselves up for testing accommodations if necessary? We answer all of those questions so that they're crystal clear as to how to register for that exam. So that's the 2-day course for the OTR prepared students. The course schedule for the OTA is a single day, and you'll see very, very similar kinds of things. There are less questions per content section in the 1-day OTA course, but a lot of it is very similar. We talk about the NBCOT structure and format of their questions. We talk about their test taking personalities. Again, the same kinds of things, a few less questions in each section. But the OTAs also get a very comprehensive in-person course. We do stress in both the in-person courses as well as the online courses that in order to be successful on the exam, it's not just memorizing content. People can be very book smart, but if they go into the exam and things like they second guess, or they have that anxiety, or they don't time manage well and don't complete the number of questions, that they need to learn how to manage themselves as a test taker just as much as needing to handle the content of the questions. We do make the course very active learning, and so there's lots of discussions about why particular students have answered questions the way they did. We try to make it a very friendly dialogue so that if they make a mistake in the course, it's not anything that is going to be a reflection of how they're going to do on the NBCOT exam. We practice lots of questions. We talk a lot about test taking strategies, and it really does force them to concentrate for long periods of time, much like they're going to have to do when they sit for the NBCOT exam. So something that we have done, but we've really started to put a bit more emphasis on it, is to ask students, what have they heard? And we will kind of do like a Mythbusters. Is it true? Is it not true? What are the facts? And we've had some really interesting things have come up from what students believe that this test is about. I've heard things from the test gets incrementally harder as they answer questions correct, which is a myth. The test is already preset. When they hit start, the questions have been pre-populated for them. They're specific questions per domain. So, we talk a lot about that so that students are not going in with these incorrect information related to the exam. As I said before, we give them lots of strategies for answering questions. We point out keywords. We help them recognize that all of the questions come from a textbook. It's not a clinician's best idea of what they think should be happening in a particular practice setting. So we really drill down that the studying comes from, or the questions come from textbook questions. Again, there is a large portion on the psychological aspect. How is the student preparing themselves mentally? How are they setting up their structure for ensuring that the several weeks that are happening before they take the tests are being done well? Making sure that they're confident, that they're recognizing that they've done difficult things in the past, and they don't make this such a hurdle that it's like a brick wall, that they're psyching themselves out. So we do integrate, as most OTs do, right? The whole psychological aspect of taking a test like the NBCOT exam. We have structured templates to help them develop a preparation plan that is very specific related to them. I think that if you hadn't seen already what Amy showed you about the practice tests, this is a good place to start. When students actually get that first report of a practice test, they see the percentage within all of those content areas of questions they got right, of questions they got wrong. Their ability to dig in and look at the rationale for what made particular questions correct or incorrect. Amy alluded to this already. We have online office hours every Tuesday evening. They're completely free. Any student can log on to those. You go to the Therapy Ed webpage, click on that online office hours, and an occupational therapy instructor is giving a live presentation of a particular content area that has been noted on the website. Tutoring, we've gone over today. And we also have that YouTube channel where we have the previously recorded online office hours, as well as other videos that can be helpful to both staff and students. So if you don't share anything else, this is an excellent way to allow Therapy Ed to kind of walk that path with your students along to successful completion of the NBCOT exam. We do have a social media presence. We are putting up an exam item of the week each Thursday. This represents the content that will be covered the following Tuesday. So on Thursday, the questions are up. On Sunday, the correct answers are revealed. The following Tuesday is the online office hour related to that particular content area. And we have a large group of students who follow us on either Facebook or Instagram. So again, you can share that if students are social media users. We do have an app. Again, we're not here to sell you anything, really just here to help you understand the products that we have. The app has new questions that students can use. They can generate smaller numbers of questions, and it also has that learning assistant built into it so students can use the AI component to help them answer those questions. So it doesn't require them to sit for 4 hours and take a full practice exam. They can pick a certain number of questions. They can categorize them in a certain content area. And with the purchase of an app, they have a 12-month plan. So essentially, they have a year to utilize these questions. So that's all I have to share with you. If you have any questions specific to the courses, you can feel free to put that in the chat box. And also, as I promised, if anyone would like to ask a question, open your microphone to ask a question. We are all going to remain on until we can answer all of the questions that you all might have. So the kind of the end of everything we have prepared for you. Is there anyone who has a question that would like to open their microphone? Scanning the chat. So if you don't have any questions, we hope that this overview of the resources that Therapy Ed offers to students has been helpful. Again, if you have no other questions, you can feel free to log off. If you have specific questions, you can feel free to put those in the chat box and or open your microphone. We thank you for your time. And again, if you have any questions specific to Therapy Ed, Betsy Pendry can answer those for you. Or if you know any of us, you can send emails to any of us as well. Always happy to be a partner in helping to make the success rate of OTs and OTAs as high as possible on their first time test taking for NBCOT. So thanks again so much for all of your time and energy. Amy has just put Betsy Pendry's email address in the chat box. You can feel free to reach out to her at any point in time.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I do have a question. Hi, my name is Magdalena Gonzalez. I am in the OTA program here in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and I'm happy to see Amy Bryant here because I have seen her at her best.
Better than at my worst.
We choose our words wisely, don't we? No, this is one of the campuses that Amy has been to, and she will probably continue to come to. My question, however, is we offer our students, I want to say several study packs. And of course, Therapy Ed is one of them. We actually implemented the Therapy Ed book into our preclinical class before the students go out for their field work in the OTA program I'm speaking of right now. They also receive the NBCOT study pack. They also receive the AOTA study pack. Some of the students, when it comes time to study time, they search further and they go into and start looking at past DOT. Also, the latest one has been TrueLearn, which is associated with Picmonic, and Picmonic we've also implemented in our program because on top of all the plethora of reasons why the students are having such difficulty, retention, that the retention, the attention is about 2 minutes less. So we find that the Picmonic also helps with those in that area. But my question is, I know that your product is Therapy Ed. I feel like TrueLearn is starting to come into, on deck. Has Therapy Ed looked into, or I'm not sure if this is relevant or not, but do you know anything about this TrueLearn and how they're also, because it seems like they're coming up, they're climbing up that ladder as far as study tools. So I wanted to know, do you know about them? Do you know anything about them? And what may you see as the future for this being a possible competitor?
So I'll start, but I will ask that we have a number of other therapy ed faculty on the call. So I think anybody can feel free to answer that. And we have talked about the competitors when we meet together annually. Our feel is, and I'm speaking from what I recall our conversation being, and anybody please feel free to correct me if I have misspoken. But we feel that TrueLearn is a lot of the videos, and the questions are written at more of a knowledge level questioning. And so they're in our look at that product, not quite as complex as the questions that are written at the NBCOT testing level. So
Okay.
yes, TrueLearn has the videos, has a lot of teaching components to it. And that's where I think our companies differ as far as the depth of the questions. And again, I'm going to stop there and allow any other of our therapy ed faculty to speak.
May I speak?
Please, Tony.
I'm Tony Thompson. I've been a therapy ed instructor and content contributor for 28 years.
Wow.
Okay. Okay. Here's my take. Okay. I'm not objective, but here's what I've seen. I have looked at TrueLearn questions. I have tried to find out who are the people generating these questions. I can get no information. We are very transparent about who's here. I did have, and I looked at questions, and one of the questions was, which of the skills for manipulating objects within your hand would you be using? We don't say manipulating objects within your hand. We call it in-hand manipulation. I have found, for me, some of the terms incorrect. I also truly believe that therapy ed, we work as a committee, we run students, we do our courses, we get together and we hear information from students, feedback on our questions. So we incorporate feedback from students. I don't just change the question because McDolly said she didn't like the answer, but we look at it, we converse with it. We have a huge group effort. It takes us a long time to generate questions. I think we have contact with students. We see what's going on. They tell us, we didn't learn that in school. We learned it this way in school. And I think we have a lot more interactive relationship with the students. My opinion, again, and I've just seen some of the questions that I have gone in and tried at TrueLearn. I agree with Ingrid. I think they're different. And I've had a couple of students say to me, but the answer that I got on TrueLearn is different than on NBCOT. So NBCOT is giving your exam. That's the language you want to look at. But that's been my experience with TrueLearn.
Thanks, Tony.
Bravo, Tony. Bravo. Bravo.
Thank you.
Brava.
Thank you. Thank you.
I've known Tony for almost as long as she's been at therapy ed. And I know she speaks the truth of what we're doing. And you gotta, there's just so much out there. And if you cannot find the source, it's just like research.
Oh, you're muted.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry. Am I on now?
You're on.
Yes.
Okay. If you can't find the source, forget it. It's just, and the people that have been at therapy ed and they've been at the forefront of
a long time,
taking us a long time and taking us into the next era. And we have students now that unfortunately, at the end don't see the value in having, our students don't see the value in having live. It's unfortunate. I try to get them to, but they do go to the online at other campuses and things. And so at least they're doing that. And you all know that I recommend therapy ed. I've been teaching for over 20 years and I've never wavered because I know what quality is and there's a lot out there that isn't.
Good.
I just wanted to say that I think that the biggest thing therapy ed has over everybody else is the comprehensive package that we have. You know, we're the only ones that give them a course to how, you know, and how to develop a study plan. Then we have practice, you know, we have a book that has all the content in it. Then they can do practice exams that then they can go back to the book. They're linked together so that they can review the content that they weren't getting right as determined by the exam. Then we have tutoring so that, you know, if they need extra one-on-one help with whatever it might be, questions, content, anxiety, you know, whatever the student needs, they get the one-on-one there. So, you know, with the therapy ed product, it covers everything. Whereas other resources like are just questions or just content or, you know, just this. And we give them so much more, you know, than other resources do. And I say that as a former PD, not as a therapy ed instructor, you know. Yeah.
Thanks, Amy.
Maybe a little bit.
I think William has raised his hand. William, do you want to open your microphone?
Sure. Hi, Ingrid. You actually came to Cedar Crest and did our workshop during
I
our
remember.
first cohort. Yeah. So this is not so much a question, it's more a comment. So you did our workshop, the students went off and did their thing. And I learned during the summer when I started talking to students, some of which were struggling, what their process was. I knew that they had gone through therapy ed. We had purchased it for all of the students, so every student participated. And apparently in one of their group chats, somebody said, therapy ed questions are really difficult. You should utilize, and they provided a couple of other programs. And people flocked to those and started taking them. And I was dumbstruck by the fact that they thought easier questions were better. But I think this speaks to their need to, for some type of validation or assurance that they were doing okay. And I didn't realize that was going on for quite a while. We had spent all this money on what I consider to be a really good program.
Yes.
And then they took a detour, paid on their own. And so it's really more just a comment. I don't know if you've seen that in other places, but I feel like if you're using a product that provides you with really rigorous questions, and that's been my history, is that if you get in this ballpark with your program, you're probably going to be okay when you take the national exam, the NBCOT. So just a point, because I just, as a program director, was not anticipating that would be an obstacle that I would run into.
Yeah, we have heard that. We have received that feedback in the past. And, you know, much to the question that was presented, you know, like what's the difference between TrueLearn or some of the other products?
Right.
And I state that in the course. I tell students that you can find products out there with questions that will be easier. Will they prepare you for the level of the NBCOT exam? My answer to that is no. And so if you feel the need, or if you are seeking to get 100% on an easy test, are you going to be prepared? And so I actually do state that. Does that make students feel good in the class if they don't get the question right? Well, perhaps not. However, as I tried to articulate, we do try to keep this very light in the courses. There is no, you know, shaming of students who are not getting the answer, no, you know, back talk about any academic preparation. You know, every school, every academic program is different. Students will have taken different things from them, but what we're trying to do is to ensure that students have this breadth over a large amount of information so that they are prepared. And I think the other thing that I want to say is I talk to students about the overwhelming purchase of multiple products and how that can be anxiety producing. So yes, students probably are gravitating to questions that are easier, that they're feeling that success rate. But those, if they're given that information as far as, is that really preparing them? Maybe they'll take a little deeper look at that. I appreciate you bringing that up very much. We have heard that. And
Yeah.
yes,
I've just been more, after that experience, I've been more intentional about letting them know that an easier product doesn't mean that you're prepared. And yeah, so I'm trying to just deal with that head on now that I realized that that happened 2 years ago.
I
yeah,
think that students also have this mentality that, especially like a lot of students I see are repeat test takers with tutoring and stuff. And they seem to have this mentality of, well, I failed because I used that product, so which one should I use now? And, you know, I could kind of biting myself in the foot, but it's not the product that is making them pass or fail. It's how they use it and how, you know, it's not the product. I mean, yes,
Right.
our product is best. They should use ours. But just
Right.
by buying another product isn't going to ensure that they pass the test. You know,
Right.
they just have to use the products correctly and the ones that are the best quality.
And that's perfect. And the reason why I did ask that is because our the OTA program here at Kaiser University in Fort Lauderdale campus is going to voluntarily close come next year, May 2026. I do not foresee this as being definite. I think we need to do a complete kind of like a just, you know, like a reset. And this is one of the areas that we talked about of concern, because we, like I said, we do use therapy ed. Kaiser University has used therapy ed for years, even when I was a student way back then. And I am working on a pilot, kind of like a pilot program of how we can move forward with the program. You know, so along with the hybrid and along with, you know, the post-COVID, and along with the alarming issue, which is retention. And of course the students want everything fast, quick, speedy. And so I want to put all of my time and attention where it need be, because I don't have time to waste. And this is why I definitely wanted to participate here, because that 68%, we see it here. Our program was shining bright for over 25 years, and it's sad to see what's happening now. So if there is anything that I can do to provide, you know, insight so that we can move forward and possibly, you know, save the program, I want to do it with the right tools, with the right armor. And that's why I wanted to ask that question, because that's what the students do. They just go all over, and we try to explain to them, no, but here you have all the content. You don't have to search. So by having the backup and by having the research, it's easier to go ahead and, you know, have this conversation with our, you know, with our admin team. So I appreciate it. And I have the book. Here it is. But, you know, one other thing that I do want to ask you all, in today's day and age, I mean, our students are all, they're quite different than what we used to be. Okay, so I definitely feel that the attention is not there. We're facing, you know, we're facing this whole, you know, the phenomenon of the phone and the internet, and how it's really just slowed students from reading. And I feel like here we just have a lot of reading comprehension issues. They're not understanding what they're reading at all. And of course you can't be there with them 24 hours a day and try to get this, you know, done. And I feel like that's the other big issue, is how do we bring this speedy society to slow down a little bit and simply read? So that's the $1,000,000 question.
When you find that out, let us know, please.
Mhm.
Definitely. But I definitely appreciate and I'm grateful myself for participating here. It gives me something, you know, like I said, it gives me some armor so that I can move forward with the students, the ones that we're teaching out, and for the future of this particular OTA program that everyone is really sad to see take us a step back. But yeah, everything has taken a toll, and we've definitely got a punch of it. So we're glad to know that Therapy Ed is still there. So as far as I'm concerned, I want the best, and I will always promote the best.
Well, thank you. We appreciate it.
All right. Have a great evening. Thank you so much for having me and discussing this particular area. Everything else I'm good with. This was the one that let me get some input. And so have a great evening.
Thank you. You as
Thank
well.
you. All righty. Have a good night. Bye-bye.
Thank you again for the opportunity. You all take care. And Amy, I just want to say to you, my whole focus has always been in education. If you change the thinking, you're going to change the outcome. And we need more faculty to understand that rather than just teaching to the subject and to the standards. If they would start from the framework of teaching people how to think, I think some of these things also would solve some of it, because then the students we're sending them out as thinkers rather than just practitioners. And I think that whole framework, I think as an association and as a profession, we need to be putting that forward about what we're supposed to be doing in education. But that's just me. Appreciate y'all. Have a good evening. Tony,
Thank
good to
you.
see you. I don't think she's still on yet, but anyway, good to see y'all. Take care.
All righty. Thank you.
Yep.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. I'm going to end the session. Thank you all for your time and attention. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Betsy Pendry is our liaison, and happy to hear from you. Take care, everyone. So long.
Bye.